What's up, Spartans? First Strike back here again and doing another Strike Team Reacts, again with Mom. Go ahead and say hello.
Hello.
We are back today reacting to another Hidden Xperia video, this time on the Infector forms is what he's calling them. I imagine we're going to be going through all the iterations of the Flood infection forms. Basically the little evil guys that will kind of crawl into your chest cavity and pilot you like an evil, awful meat mech.
Right.
It's going to prove to be a fun time, as always with Hidden X's videos. So we're going to go ahead and start and let him take it from here.
Okie doke.
Hey guys, welcome back to yet another Flood lore video. Today we're covering what I've grouped as the Infector forms. So this includes infection forms, believe it or not, carrier forms, and something extremely important that I'd imagine quite a lot of people don't know too much about. Flood spores. So today we're going to kick it off with
Cool. So I actually do know about a little bit of the flood spores. My lore knowledge tends to be very broad stroke, so I know some things here and there. Flood spores, essentially, if hopefully I'm not going to take the lightning out of the video, but they were essentially what the precursors turned into. The precursors were essentially what came before even the forerunners.
Okay.
I think folks from the Mass Effect community could even call them like the Reapers or like the Protheans, something similar. I'm not saying that's 100%, but something similar. And during the Forerunner War with the Precursors, as the Precursors were losing the war, they turned themselves into this essentially sentient dust to disperse into the galaxy to get away from the Forerunners. But what ended up happening was they got corrupted. And that corruption of space dust and crazy alien dust turned into the Flood.
Oh, gross.
They never intended to turn into the Flood. That wasn't the plan.
Okay.
And this is what happens when Plan B fails, essentially.
Great.
But I'm stoked. I know a little bit. I can't wait to hear more from a Flood. I'm going to go ahead and call him a Flood expert at this point.
Yeah.
Hidden X is very well known in the community for loving the Flood.
probably the most lethal and infectious tool in the Flood's control, Flood spores. The reason these bastards are so deadly is because they're airborne and are able to infect a host without the use of an infection form. They can infect them simply via inhalation. This makes anyone without a personal ventilation system like a gas mask or a helmet or something similar extremely vulnerable to infection. Their common method of operation, as you would believe, is to clog up air filtration systems and ventilation, which causes all of the oxygen circulating through a facility to be compromised and all the victims within the facility to be infected as they breathe the air and then also the spores in. Not much is...
That's horrifying, because it's not even anymore that you have to have, as you can see on screen here, a flood infection form jump your bones and control your nervous system. It's now... Oh, you needed to breathe? Sorry, organic organism. You are now infected with the flood. Like, it's
terrifying.
It turns it into like Lovecraftian evil cancer at that point, where it's just you breathe it in and now you have these evil tumors that want to eat everything.
Really known about the process in which flood spores mutate a host into a combat form, aside that it interacts and modifies their biomass and organs similar to an infection form, likely using a flood supercell to aid in the mutation, while also, as you'd expect, consuming their biomass and replacing it with that lovely yellow rotten flood biomass. It's also been noted that infection via spores is significantly slower than by infection forms,
delightful.
And that the physical mutations and modifications that happen to a combat form, like the whip or the claw, might not actually happen. This is probably due to how slow infection via spores is, and that because of this, mutations like the whip take longer than the average lifespan of a combat form to actually be produced.
Oh, I think I kind of remember something like this from the lore too. Okay, so kind of like how I was saying in the beginning, how the precursors turned to that dust. If I remember right, and if I'm correct, and I'm hoping Hidden X is going to bring it up, I think it was a part in the Forerunner trilogy of books from 343, now Halo Studios, and it was like there's this one planet that was under human control, ancient human control. And like their pets started to get infected with this blood spores, or like like prey animals got infected with it, but it didn't do much of anything. It just made them like act slightly weird or slightly different.
Huh.
But what happened was kind of like how that one line from Jurassic Park Lost World. Well, the carnivores eat the herbivores, so the humans would eat these prey animals, or like because they're domesticated animals, the domesticated animals would transfer the flood spores to their owners, and then it slowly over time turned them into flood.
Yeah, that's why it's not good to let your animals lick you.
That's the best commercial probably for that. Yeah, I wonder if that's what he's building up to, because that's what I remember from the lore, is that it on some human worlds it started off with like their pets and their prey animals, but we'll see. I'm hoping I'm right, but this is awesome.
And therefore we never see them. Flood spores are also used en masse by the flood to infect certain locations, using things called spore mountains, which you can see on screen right now, to disperse large amounts of spores into the atmosphere really quickly, which allows for a quick conversion of a large area. This was likely one of the ways that High Charity was infected and fell to the flood so fast.
None of you guys can see this on screen, but Mama Strike is physically recoiling from the screen watching that.
I can't scoot far enough back.
Oh, geez. Yeah, I always knew I wanted to know what those were called, but flood mountains or spore mountains.
Yeah, those are gross.
Creepy.
We can even see a load of flood spores in the Halo 2 post-credit scene. And I'd imagine that a bunch of these infecting the air supply of a dense city with loads of organisms moving around and breathing in it wouldn't exactly end so well. I mean, hell, we saw how it ended. It ended pretty fucking disgustingly.
Yeah.
Right, so let's move on to the most common flood form, and also the thing that is the main vector of infection. You guessed it, the infection form. These little buggers are actually quite a lot bigger than the games have you believe, coming in at between 3 and 4 feet tall, which, like, if you imagine one right now just stood right in front of you at that height.
I didn't know they were that big.
Well, yeah, I mean, he said 4 feet tall. I'm 5'4", so it would be like up to my shoulders. Ugh.
That's even worse.
That's horrifying.
Okay, so for me, like, I experienced the flood forms playing as Chief, who was like 7 foot something in armor, and they look like a little popcorn on legs.
Yeah.
Never thought they were this fucking big.
Yeah,
I didn't know this.
That's horrifying.
That's like a Great Dane jumping into your chest cavity and trying to pilot you.
Yeah,
that's
gross.
awful.
No, I don't like it.
Oh.
I didn't realize they were that big either. Blech.
Oh, no. I really, really...
I'm not okay with that.
That's awful.
I don't like it.
Oh.
It's pretty fucking rancid. When in range, they jump towards the chest of the host, which is heavily reminiscent of their original inspiration, and they use their tentacles to penetrate armor and skin, and then they tap into the host's spinal cord. This allows them to destroy the nervous system and thus kill the host. The tendrils are then used to rewrite the neural pathways of the victim's brain, which gives them total control over the body's movement, but means a host must have a central nervous system to actually be infected. Because, of course, without one, they can't control the organism, quite clearly. That's why things like hunters can't be infected. While doing this, it also releases flood supercells into the body, which digest their original cells before converting the components of these cells into flood cells. At this point, the infection form is burrowed pretty deep inside the victim's body, and it has basically full control over it, modifying it with a whip, or a claw, or basically whatever attachment or growth it deems necessary for its current action.
What, how long does that take? Like, when it gets in there and pulls your spine apart?
I mean, I don't think there's... So, this is now where we tap into what counts as canon in Halo, and this is a very hotly debated topic. So, there are 2 canons, officially. The last statement on it was from Bungie. There is the game canon and the book canon. Bungie says the game canon takes precedent. So if that's the case, and we're looking at Halo 3 footage here, basically, how long does it take? Exactly as we've been watching right now.
So like pretty
super
immediate.
quick. I don't remember. I don't think, as far as I can remember, this is not me saying I'm 100% right, but as far as I can remember, there isn't any lore from a book I can point to that I can remember saying, oh yeah, flooded infection, total infection takes around 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't remember a
Okay.
specific spot saying that, but if we're going off of what Bungie says, which I tend to, then it's near instantaneous as per what we're watching, moments if that.
Which I mean, at least it's as far as we're thinking, kind of instantaneous. I would hate for this to take. Oh, it takes 13 hours for it to happen, and the guy is like still alive, knowing what's happening. Ugh.
Yeah, that's awful. I mean, you are alive through this
Well,
entire
yeah.
process, which is just horrendous. Just the idea of like, it's not just like, oh, okay, my flesh is being torn apart and remolded. No, your very cells are being turned into soup that's being turned into Play-Doh, then being utilized. Like,
Yeah,
it is. I can't even. I had a thumb fracture when I was a kid, one, and I was from a trampoline. I can't imagine the entirety of my body being cellularly rebuilt
yeah, no.
and turned into what we're seeing on screen right
Yeah,
now.
that's-
Like, that
no.
is macabre
okay.
in the most awful way possible.
And thus the conversion to a combat form is basically complete. This process can take between a few seconds
okay.
and even minutes to complete,
There we go.
Thanks, Index.
Yep.
and
thanks.
also depending on the state of the infection form, it can lead to some pretty differing outcomes. One such outcome, as I explained in the last video, was in the case of Private Wallace Jenkins. Now, it's unknown exactly why it happened, but when Jenkins was infected and turned into a combat form, he didn't
I'm probably gonna have to put some tasteful coverage over some of these panels here because they definitely could be gory.
die per se.
Yeah, these panels are describing. I haven't seen this comic, but it's most likely the aftermath of what happened to Jenkins. The novel Halo the Flood by William C. Dietz is really good. I loved the novelization of Halo Combat Evolved, which, by the way, is a good argument as to why, if you were just to make a Halo TV show, it would still be very successful if you just did the events
Right.
of Halo Combat Evolved. But that is one Spartan's opinion on that.
He had very little control over his body, but he could still talk, and managed to communicate with a group of ODSTs who had ultimately captured him to
Yep.
interrogate him. Sadly, well, actually, I say sadly, not exactly sadly, considering he was going through an immense amount of pain, but Jenkins
Yeah.
ultimately died when the Truth and Reconciliation crashed on Installation 04, but not after the infection form controlling him almost totally infected him, while also snapping his wrist and also the veins within it when he tried to overpower it.
Yeah. You could easily call any part of that book with Jenkins in it the tragedy of Jenkins, because it's another. It kind of reminds me of that story I had you listen to, like I talked about last time, which was Halo: Human Weakness, where Jen Taylor was reading as Cortana in the Gravemind, but while Jenkins' struggle with what he called the other is another very good example of human I think I'll say tenacity, for lack of a better term, because this entire time he's trying to fight this awful creature controlling him, and like, though Hinex does say he talks to the ODSTs, it not really, from what I recall in the book. It's mostly he tries to talk by giving out hoots and really awful macabre charades. Like, he communicates. I'd hesitate to say talk, because it's very, I mean, if you've ever remember being under anesthesia or the after effects of anesthesia,
Right.
you're very loopy. You're slurring and all this and that. It was a worse version of that for Jenkins. He couldn't get across a single human syllable. It was always hoots, gurgles, cries and growls. Like, it was very,
Yeah.
very awful. But the part he's talking about right now, when he was trying to fight off the infection and it snapped his wrists and busted his veins, yeah, it's... People don't really consider Halo grimdark, because when people think about grimdark, they think about Warhammer 40k and the grimdark future, the 41st millennium,
Yeah.
yada yada yada. But that's like a grimdark in a wide spread. Everything is awful. Everything is horrible. The Flood are a grimdark concept, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people would agree with that sentiment.
Yeah.
All in all, the Jenkins tale is pretty fucking gruesome.
Yeah.
If you read it, be prepared to be creeped out. But anyways, back to the infection forms, back to what we were talking about. They are created from these things that we only know as Flood tadpoles. I believe that's just sort of like an offhand word that Bungie gave them as sort of like a joke, but we've never had an official name, so right now that's all we're running with. These tadpoles can be found in Forerunner research installations. For example, the gas mine on Threshold that we visited in Halo 2 had a tank full of these little buggers just right at the start of the Oracle, swimming about, looking quite creepy and disturbing, actually.
It's evil balloons.
These little creatures would eventually turn into infection forms. When fully grown, they're capable of abandoning a damaged body and finding a newer, fresher one, and taking control of it, while also reanimating a body that previously had an infection form in it that was destroyed, or died somehow. Hence why abandoned combat form bodies should always be destroyed and or burnt. A little PSA for you guys, if Earth ever gets hit by a flood infection, just remember to burn the combat forms.
Let's hope not.
God, I hope that never happens. However, there are some things that can prevent an infection form from assimilating a host. The only armor that can truly prevent infection, as far as we know, is energy shielding. For example, if an infection form jumps at somebody wearing Mjolnir armor, they just sort of pop when they hit the shields. I expect this is due to the electricity or the static that comes off of...
Huh. That surprises me, because I thought it was only like high velocity objects that could bounce, that Mjolnir shielding bounces off of, because pretty much like when you play Halo multiplayer, which again technically is a game, which means technically is canon, you can kill a Spartan by punching them twice.
Oh.
Which one punch pops the shields, one punch knocks you dead.
That seems a little crazy to me.
Well, remember though that it's a Spartan punching a Spartan, so this is not just Joe Blow down the street in Mjolnir armor. This is a hyper augmented human being with force multiplying circuits punching at full force, which is in the books explained as exponentially increasing the strength of the user. So if you throw a full beans punch at somebody when you're in Mjolnir, the servos and the circuits amplify that force exponentially. Now, there's a bit of debate about that, why that works, why that doesn't. There was a video, I forget by whom, but essentially it's why does it take only 2 punches to kill a Spartan? Well, if you're punching somebody in the neural implant at the base of the spine, that's why it kills them. But that isn't explicitly said, as far as I know, in any lore game or in book lore. But it just surprises me. With how slow that the infection forms move, I didn't catch when I played that's what did it. I know that the shields did it, but I didn't think that they would activate off of that because they're not moving fast enough. I thought it had to be like
super fast.
I thought it had to be like this, the velocity of a round or the velocity of a plasma bolt. But I might also be mixing my Halo Ghosts of Onyx lore, which is Sentinel shields automatically activate when an object going faster than a certain threshold. But I digress.
The shields, and it just sort of zaps them and pops them, but either way, if you have shielding, you're kind of safe. The augmentations from the highly classified Spartan 1 program, of which Sergeant Johnson was a part of, didn't give him immunity, but a much lower chance of infection, and like I mentioned in the last video as well, any organism without a central nervous system, such as megalith Golo colonies in Hunters, can't be infected. When an infection form chooses to infect,
to expand on that a little bit, because Hidden X kind of just jumped past it a little bit, which is nothing. This is his video. He can do it however he wants to. I'm just happy to kind of fill in things here. Why Spartan ones, or they're also known as Orions because it was called the Orion Project back before Spartans were even a thing, was the reason why it was given in the books, which later Bungie was like, we don't really agree with that, which is fair because later they just said, well, Johnson's just a badass, that's why he survived. But the books gave it a more explained reason, which again, people are kind of in two camps about stuff like that. When you explain something, it takes away the mystery or the theatrics of it. But for some people who are a bit more like me, who want to know why, it's interesting. So the reason in Halo lore why Johnson survived the flood infection attack that took Wallace, took Captain Keyes, was because of the Orion Project. It screwed with his central nervous system and the frequencies that humans' nervous system gives off.
Okay.
And that's what flood infection forms tap into. I think that's where he's about to get to, but I wanted to explicitly say why for Johnson.
Okay,
but
cool.
We'll see if he says it. I hope he does. But hey, and if I'm wrong, I'll be happy to learn more about that too.
Host that it ultimately chooses will likely dictate what that combat form does. For example, the reason that we mostly see human, elite, and brute combat forms is because they all have the desired traits for a good, strong, and lethal combat form, whereas weaker organisms like grunts and jackals are more likely to be used as either biomass to create a grave mind, or to form what we're going to finish this video with: carrier forms. So carrier forms are classed as mobile incubation units that are capable of developing infection forms and also storing them inside themselves on the go.
Yep.
These forms are created from either damaged and useless combat forms, or combat forms that have been used for a while and have basically outlived their usefulness.
Oh, good. So not only do you get horrifically killed when you're turned into a flooded infection form, you get to slowly watch everything you ever knew about yourself slip away as you're turned into an awful, awful, sick creature. When you're deemed no longer useful, you're turned into a baby-making factory. It's at least there's a job for everybody in the flood.
No, that's gross.
Infection forms begin growing within the combat
like how they
forms,
walk.
and as more grow, the combat form
That's how I walk after the buffet.
There you
begins
go.
to swell out, and it loses limbs to make space to accommodate and store more and more infection forms.
Oh.
This is why carrier forms look really fat and top-heavy. They're literally crawling with infection forms. It's pretty fucking disgusting.
Yeah.
The only limbs that it retains are, quite obviously, the legs, so it can remain mobile. When it sees a possible host, it waddles towards them and then throws itself on the ground, expanding its incubation sac with gases in the inside until it explodes, which then releases the infection forms to go and infect them. It's a pretty primitive method of attack for such an ancient and evil being, but...
That's so... Literally, I have goosebumps. Nope.
I mean,
That's disgusting.
I mean, what's funny is that though it's an ancient form of, it's an ancient life form doing this very primitive mode of attack, I'm going to keep this as non-political as I can, but there's always been some form of suicide unit in almost every army, in history. I'll say not every army because I'm not a historian, but there's always been some type of crazy type of zealot unit or something that is willing to go into the line of enemy fire and use its life, and the fact that this is an ancient form of life doing it is just adds to the awful of it.
That's not good for people who don't like spiders. That's
I'm hating life watching this.
Spider
expelling
her babies when someone tries to kill it or
I've
something.
done that before. I've been the unfortunate person with a flip-flop killing a spider doing that, and it is the most horrifying thing because I turn into one of those characters in Mario when they get the superstar with the hammer and just start smacking all around. Yeah, it's
the whack-a-mole.
Yeah, it's awful, and this just makes it even worse.
Yeah.
Hell, it gets the job done. Also, the explosion itself does damage, which can be pretty lethal, and ironically, take down Mjolnir's shield, so the infection forms don't risk bursting as soon as they touch them.
Oh, gross.
So, that's it for the Infector forms. In the next video, we're going to be covering the Pure forms. And then, because the reception to this series has been so good, I might do one more on the different Gravemind forms, if there's enough demand, of course. Let me know in the comments if you want to see that. I would certainly like to make that video, so let me know in the comments if you want to see that. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I really appreciate the continued support. It means the world to me. I say this too much, but it really does. Anyways, thanks a lot for watching again, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Oh, jeez. I'm always so excited to listen to more of Hidden X explain stuff, but man, I also like learning the more nuanced stuff because, like I said, I know the broad stroke knowledge about a decent amount of the Halo universe. I would consider myself, a amateur Halo historian, and to hear like different parts of Halo Tube with their specific interests is amazing. Yeah, guys, if you haven't seen, well, actually, he already has his original video that Mama Strike and I reacted to, which is up here, the lore behind the combat forums. We just watched the lore of the Infector forums, and he has plans. This is an older video, so I think all these videos are out now. But he has planned video for the Pure forums and the Grave Mines, which is going to be very, very awesome.
I'm interested in all of those.
Yeah, it's going to be a time. Well, I mean, nothing much more to say than thank you guys for watching us react to this content of another episode of Strike Team Reacts. Hopefully you guys are having as much fun as we are, getting goosebumps and physically recoiling while we listen and watch. But that's all from us. Remember, strike hard, strike fast, strike first. I'll see you guys in the next one.
Bye.
Goodbye. This is First Strike Cosplay. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.